All right.
It's the 79th episode of SETI BIMCO and the 29th of SETI BIMCO Part 2, The Revenge. And this month, it's October. It's scary month. And later this hour, we're going to talk about the movie Equinox.
Yeah.
And you know what? We're also going to answer the age-old question. Did Betsy Ross... But you know what? I did research on Betsy Ross, and I was like...
Did Betsy Ross what? What's the question?
No, but I got distracted by my research. She is the 8th of 17 children. Her mother was pregnant like 12 years of her life. So I thought more like, did Betsy Ross's mother ever get revenge on her father for not using some birth control now and then?
Now, I have a question, Tim.
Yeah.
17 kids, but she was only pregnant for 12 years. That's either a lot of Irish twins, you know, where like the second they pop out.
George, I'm very good at math. Now, did you do that math? What is that in today's years?
I mean,
1780
let's see.
years.
1780, that's 5,000 years. Wow.
It's SETI BIMCO Part 2, The Revenge. The show where we create revenge sequels that nobody wanted.
It's SETI BIMCO Part 2, The Revenge. The show where we make up revenge sequels to these bad movies we watch. And I'm going to pick a wild card question because at the end of this movie, that paper's loud. We're going to ask who from this movie, Equinox, most likely to, who's most likely to cry during a pornographic movie?
This is the first of the wild cards. That's the first wild card that's not been directly in reference to Boggy Creek, so far as I know.
Maybe not. Those crab
Maybe
trees.
Was there a scene where the crab trees is like, it's just so sad the way that cable guy came and he didn't fix her cable.
Yeah.
That's my southern accent, everybody. Arkansas.
Next movie I saw with that cable guy and the lady, she was his stepdaughter.
So,
what?
SETI BIMCO, America's foremost revenge-themed podcast. We are entering a new month here. This is October. What do we call it? Scary Oktoberfest?
Sure.
We didn't come up with a good name. Scary-tober. Frocktober? No, that sounds like it's about a dress. No, it's just we're all of October because it is the best month because it has Halloween. We're going to be watching scary movies.
Yeah.
And if you're an avid listener of the podcast like I am, you probably had pretty low hopes going in because, you know, Tim was checking and Tim movies. But I have a pleasant surprise, Tim. Good fucking movie this week.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yep.
We'll get to it.
But before we get to it, we have you actually sent me a revenge story
Wait. Before you get to revenge story, I got to say something.
You got to fucking derail it. I get it. We had some steam going. You're like, wait, I have a list of 3 things I found under my foot this morning. 1,
I told
a sock.
You. I just watched Girls Just Want to Have Fun, the video.
Yeah. Everyone, just so you know, when I logged on, Tim is the host of the recording session. Tim was pretending not to notice me, but he looks up surreptitiously and singing, "Wanna have fun, girls." So Tim, this is a big thing for Tim.
But if you remember the end of the video, Cyndi Lauper goes dancing in the streets and she collects a lot of teenage girls and boys. They could be 20, they could be younger, but from adult eyes watching it again. And one old, like British dude looks like he's from Wall Street, but he looks like he's British. He's like, I'm going to go along and dance with you kids.
Okay, it's been probably 30 years since I've seen this, but I kind of... Did he have an umbrella?
I think
and like a bowler hat?
It's like, it's tea time.
Was he the penguin?
Yeah, almost. But watching with adult eyes, I'm like, oh, you're following all these teen kids back to Cyndi Lauper's bedroom, because if you remember the end, she just goes into her house, opens her door.
No, I don't. This is timely comedy.
All the kids go into her bedroom.
Nobody has watched this video for 30 years. You're making references.
There's one old man from Wall Street. It's like, yeah, teen party. They won't notice. They won't notice me.
That guy, he should be, back in the day, he was probably a hero, but now we should point him out as the villain he rightfully. What do you think he did when he got up into that room?
He was that cool teacher that drank with his students, probably his college students.
That's never a cool teacher. That's a guy, though. He knew the name of every columnist in Tiger Beat.
Right.
He knew every. That was his in. That guy was a problem. All right. Well, all that needs to be cut out anyway, because nobody knows what the fuck we're talking about.
They do too.
City Lauper girls want to have fun. Nobody's heard that they've heard it. The song's great. Nobody's watched the video for years.
Okay, derail me back to. You actually want to talk about my revenge news story?
I actually want to talk about your revenge news story because
it is pretty nuts.
I read it and it was a straightforward case. Well, no, it wasn't a straightforward case of revenge. It's a clear revenge, but it's fucking nuts.
I know.
You want to do the encapsulation of this thing?
Well, the title is Bizarre Story of a Teenager's Quest for Revenge on a 5-Star New York Hotel. A place where you can buy a cheeseburger and fries for $60.
And there was a $24,000 bottle of wine on the menu, apparently.
Yeah. Did they name this restaurant? I'm looking.
Yeah, it's called The Mark.
Oh, I never heard of it.
It's East 77th Street, apparently. This is a case of, remember a few years ago there was the term affluenza, how the problems rich people. This is some real rich people problems. Yes. Basically, the kid, what was his name? It's Theodore Weintraub.
Yes,
fuck that name. Theodore Weintraub, at 17, 2 years ago, procured himself a fake ID. And as the article points out, instead of going to like some, bar, he goes into this fancy restaurant to that bar and is like, I want to have a drink, sir. And I'm imagining this little shitheel was very obvious. 17.
You didn't do it right. Please, sir, can I have a drink? I'm totally 21.
Do we think he was British?
Yes,
I think he was a little. I think he was a little shitty Manhattan kid.
Theodore Weintraub. He made up a fake British accent.
So, the quality people running the bar at the Mark were like, "Hit the road, Jack." And apparently, he keeps doing this. He keeps going repeatedly, getting kicked out until finally we learned in this article the kid is banned from the hotel.
Yes. Of course.
Then he goes with his rich mommy and daddy for dinner reservations there. They apparently don't know about this.
Well, wait, you did leave out some of the middle stuff. He came back with friends to protest. Remember?
That's later.
Oh,
that's
okay.
later.
Sorry.
First, he shows up with his family, and they're like, and the manager of the hotel is like, Mr. Senior Weintraub, you're a terrible father. Mrs. Weintraub, if you're the mother, you're a terrible mother. You've raised a rotten kid, and he's kicked out of here. And the father's like, I understand. Hands out his personal business card to all. This is what it says.
That's my favorite part. I understand.
I know.
He's an asshole.
Like, you're right. You're right to do this. It's like, oh, this kid. And in that moment, this kid sucks.
Yes.
The shit they have to deal with this kid. This kid is just a rotten shitbag. 2 years pass after this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And the kid at 19 doesn't say what he's doing. He just has a trust fund, presumably.
Yes.
And another conspirator who's just known John Doe in these papers start having protests out in front of the Mark Hotel.
Yeah.
Saying
they don't believe in the Holocaust.
They denied the Holocaust. They supported Jeffrey Epstein.
Something else.
Other shit. Yeah, just weird fucking shit. They get in fights with people. They got in a fist fight with one of Drake's bodyguards.
Yes.
Because Drake stays at this. This whole fucking thing. And it finally is escalated to the point where the hotel is suing this little fuckbag for defamation. All because he went on this weird campaign of terror against them.
For not
he had signs saying they have rats because they wouldn't serve him a drink on his fake ID. He's doing this at 19. This little shit is still 2 years away from drinking legally.
Oof.
And I'm like, so I don't know. Theodore Weintraub, if you're a listener, please don't listen anymore. Elder Weintraubs.
Don't start a war with him.
What's he going to do? Show up at my house and say, I got rats? I'm like, I got 5 cats. I ain't got no rats, son. Elder Weintraubs, you did it. You screwed up.
Yep.
You still have 2 years until this kid is 21. And let's be honest, this kid doesn't sound like he has a lot of life skills that are really working for him. He's probably going to be sucking off your withered teat until he's in his 50s. Do something now to straighten this kid out. Sort his life out, mate.
George, what if he knows something we don't? What if they do have rats? And this is all a big conspiracy. What if they are friends with Jeffrey Epstein?
Wait, the article does point out Jeffrey Epstein did live 7 blocks away, but the hotel's like he never stayed here. Well, that's even Tim. If you live 7 blocks away from a hotel, know what hotel you're probably not staying at? The one 7 blocks away.
It's 2 sides to every story. That's all I'm saying. I got to take up devil's advocate here.
Good people on both sides, huh? Yeah, that kid sucks. So let's stop talking about sucky kids. Let's talk about this movie.
Equinox begins where Rosemary's Baby left off.
I especially love the guy who says Equinox in the trailer. Did you hear the trailer?
I did. I watched the trailer. I watched 2 different trailers. Yeah. Which version did you watch? Did you watch the
Equinox?
Well, there's a Criterion edition.
That's what I watched, and that's what I sent
you. You did too. Okay. Yeah. Because
if you notice in one of the trailers, there's a horse, and the women are attacking each other, and I'm like, well, that didn't happen in our version. I saw a version of the trailer where there was a horse, and the 2 women were like attacking each other.
There was many scenes of a horse in the movie we watched.
No. Horse?
Asmodeus is on a horse all the time.
No.
And then, Asmodeus, the first 5 times you see him, he rides up on a horse. And then when he attacks Susan, she first sees the horse and the horse attacks her.
Maybe I'm just forgetting the horse.
Maybe, Tim...
we watch the wrong versions.
Do you have horse blindness?
I do. Oh, no.
All right, Tim, question. When you see a centaur, is it just half a man floating?
Yeah.
Oh, Tim,
my
you don't see horse.
Can't fathom what it is, and it just makes up another thing. It's like
so you can't even tell that I'm talking to you right now from a stable. I'm surrounded by horses.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, you can't see any of that.
That's what that noise is.
Yeah, and that smell. Yeah, horses everywhere. And the women definitely do fight, too.
Oh, before we get nuts, because we're going to get nuts, I do want to say just Batman. Something slightly serious.
Okay.
That we make fun of movies like Amazons of the Golden Temple because it was total trash, where the director was like, how can I get these women naked and have inappropriate killing and raping? But I'm still going to laugh about this movie, but I wanted to say, cool movie. The people that made it went on to do Star Trek, Star Wars, Jurassic Park, and they made this movie at 20 years old. I didn't do that, and my hat's off to them. I love stop motion photography and the movie. We're going to have fun talking about it, but it's from a place of cool movie that they made at age 20.
Sounds like, well, Tim, it sounds like you got a threatening call from the Criterion people.
Yes.
Like you best not be.
No, I'm just saying that I do love this movie in a way.
Yeah. This movie is, it's very interesting. I definitely recommend people watch it. Tim.
Yes.
First question. Why is this called Equinox?
That I didn't get into that research.
Oh, I don't know either.
Oh, okay.
Also, you said that they made this movie at 20. I have a little factoid for you.
Yeah.
The original short film, which is part of this film, they made when they were younger.
Oh, yeah.
And then something like 5 years passed,
wow.
and they got the original cast back, and they filmed new scenes. So if you look carefully, you can actually see some of the actors are... It's not like they're like wizened old trolls, but there's definitely they've gone from 20 to mid-20s from scene to scene.
I was going to say, I saw, I don't know if it's Wikipedia, it said a group of teenagers. And I'm like, we could have watched this when this show is about teenagers, but they're not teenagers. They live in a house. They have cars.
Yeah.
They read Playboy.
Maybe the original short one, they were teenagers, but...
So,
do you have any information about the people? Because you were talking like the pedigree of this film.
Well, Dennis Muren and Jackie Woods are listed as directors, and on the Criterion, it's just Dennis Muren. So I don't know what went on there, but Dennis Muren went on to work on Jurassic Park and Star Wars.
And wasn't he actually not credited initially or something weird?
Probably.
There's some account for that.
But you know who produced this?
No.
Oh, is his name gone? Oh, Jack H. Harris. He produced Beware the Blob, which we watched.
What?
Yeah.
That's cool. That's another good movie.
And
that's the last time you chose a good movie.
Until now.
Until now.
And Frank Bonner? He became Hank on WKRP in Cincinnati, the guy with the dark hair, Jim in the movie. If you ever watched WKRP in Cincinnati.
Wait.
Jim, the dark-haired guy, yeah.
That guy acted again.
Yeah, in a sitcom. That's popular sitcom.
And that's a well-known show. I mean, I only remember Howard Hessman.
Yeah.
I remember him. And wasn't Lonnie Anderson on that?
Yeah.
Okay. I remember those two. Was Tony Danza on that? That was Taxi, right?
Yeah, it's not Tony Danza.
Okay. That's interesting because I thought that guy, Jim, he was pretty good in this.
Yeah. Well,
there was, well, we'll talk about it. Oh, Tim isn't so scared of Criterion. He's not going to diss Jim.
No, I want to ask you before I forget. They made this movie supposedly for $6,500, and some people say $8,000. What's that in today's money?
I saw $8,000 in today's money.
Is it $30,000?
What year was this? 8,000 1970
or 69. Now. They made it over 2 years. So
yeah, let's do 1969. Split the difference since we know they started. Tim.
30,000.
That's actually it's actually 66,000. Almost 67,000. Which, I mean, we've seen cheaper films than this on SETI BIMCO.
Oh yeah.
I want to point out two interesting people's names I picked out of the credits.
Okay.
One of the stars, one of the actors, their name is Robin Christopher.
Oh, for real?
I'm like, so close. So close.
Is this a Crabtree thing? Was her name Robin Crabtree first?
Well, actually, I don't even know. That's the thing. I don't know if they are a male or a female or maybe even a bear, a very little brain. But yeah, their name is Robin Christopher. And I was like writing that down. And the other thing, did you catch who is the assistant cameraman on this?
Oh, yes. Ed Begley Jr.
Ed Begley Jr.
That's right.
America's Own. That was interesting.
And David Allen, the other animator, did you look over his resume?
No.
He went on, one of the other animators from this movie, to do the Pillsbury Doughboy. The Pillsbury Doughboy.
The Pillsbury.
Also the Pillsbury Doughboy. Flesh Gordon. And
I did see he did Flesh Gordon.
I'm not sure, but I think he animated the Lucy puppet that used to be at the start of her 1970s show, which I sent you a clip of it. You didn't watch it.
No, you didn't.
I did.
Send me that.
That was my favorite part of the Lucy show. They had an animated puppet of her. I sent you that.
Nightmarish. I didn't see it. You sent me a lot of emails. By the way, people listening.
Did I send you the Munsters link with the dead people in the background?
Yeah. I fucking started watching 2 seconds of that and turned it off. Tim sends me this thing right before we're filming Munsters. I'm like, I guess this is tying in. And it's this guy, no offense, guy makes a thing, but he's kind of a goober talking about the goofs that are in Munsters. He's like, in the first episode, Monsters Masquerade, you look out the window, it looks like a city. But you see from the establishing shots, they live in a suburb. I'm like,
but you didn't watch it long enough.
No, I turned it right off.
Later, he's like, look in the background here. I think I see a munchkin done hung himself in the back of the set.
No. The old hanged munchkin.
Missed it out.
Wait, Tim, the guy starts off talking about shit like that. Then, I turned it off with the second thing. Is like, you'll notice on the second episode, Grandpa Al Lewis has a prosthetic nose. I'm like, why, Tim? And I turned it off.
In the background there, I see Ted Danson's ghost. Come on, you missed all the good stuff.
Ted Dance's ghost is hanging a munchkin. Somebody stop him.
Okay.
Oh, so many jokes. All right, so back to the movie. Because I want to talk about this movie.
I do.
Yeah, so the movie is called Equinox, and it opens up with a pretty long credit sequence, which shows a lot of whirring gears and clocks and macro. And it takes a lot of time because it's funny. It's interminable. So it's why are we seeing all these clocks? I don't know what that has to do with anything.
I fell asleep,
time doesn't really play into this thing. It's
no.
I feel like at one point in the screenplay, Equinox made sense and there was time travel elements, and it kind of just doesn't materialize.
Oh, it does, George. Later in the film,
kind of.
When they say, how long does it take to get to Eddie's party? They all go, I don't know. Hope you put gas in the car.
I don't even know what you're referring. Is that a joke? What is that?
Later in the film, they don't know how long it's going to take to get to Eddie's party. I'm like, what's with you kids? Anyway, we'll get to it.
I don't think you saw the same movie as me.
Criterion.
What Eddie's party?
Oh my God. You're not kidding me, are you?
No, wait, I really don't remember this. They go...
Did you watch the wrong version?
Wait, hold on. The movie I saw...
Oh, no.
Let's do this straight. It opens up with the clock montage. This is the general plot.
Yeah.
A guy and his girlfriend and his best friend and her girlfriend are going to meet the one guy's professor in the woods.
Well, that's part of it. Yes.
Yeah, and the professor, there's a whole weird thing with the book,
and
they see maybe a castle.
But yours doesn't start with he gets our hero David at first.
Yes,
there's
David.
an explosion. You see some legs, blood on them with a woman. He runs.
We see a woman. Oh yeah, okay, that's what I saw too.
And
so
a car
there's an
hits
explosion.
him.
Yeah,
and then he goes.
It's
to
a long
the
sequence.
Mental hospital, and a journalist comes to see him, and the doctor's like, I put some tranquilizers in him. He's acting up. Is that how you saw it at the beginning?
Yes.
You see at the beginning where he's in the mental hospital.
Yeah, let's state this a little bit more clearly then. So movie starts off with there's a big explosion. We see a woman's like legs with like the fakest red blood on them.
Sure.
The guy goes, Susan. And we're introduced to our leading man, I guess. David. And he's running. It's like this. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's okay.
Pretty long
Nicely
sequence
filmed.
where like, what was interesting? I thought really occurred to me watching this thing. This movie, like we said, it was released in 70, filmed in 69 in the late 60s, right?
Yes.
A lot of handheld camera work.
Yeah. When he runs out into the highway, that was a nice shot.
So much of this movie it was nice shots, but I'm like, what the fuck were handheld cameras like back then?
Yeah, that's I wrote this down. He said they were armed with a 16 millimeter Bolex camera. Tells you right there when they're. That's what it says. Like I did, and what they made it for $6,000. So I saw that little bit of research.
So I don't know what a Bolex camera is, but presumably something could be carried. It just reminded me, and this will not be the first time I mention this. This movie reminds me very, very much of Evil Dead by Sam Raimi.
It's Evil Dead if they made it to the cabin.
Yeah, it is Evil Dead. It's just Evil Dead.
They just didn't get to the cabin.
And there's so many things that are similar to it. And I know in Evil Dead, it was another kind of like young kids filming this production, improvising. And Evil Dead, one of its trademark shots is the kind of zoom shots through the woods. And I know that they had to take their camera and like bolt it to like a piece of wood that they carried. Like they had to kind of make a way of doing the handheld thing. And that was like in the late 70s or early 80s.
Yep.
So I imagine they were similar jury rigging for these dudes.
But
so guy gets hit by a car, running for his life, screaming, oh, it's a whole maybe 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It's a good way to get you in. There's almost no dialogue. You just hear him go, Susan. And I guess he maybe says, they're going to get me.
Yeah. Then he's in a mental hospital. And
well, we pick up, it's a year later, and we actually hear a news report. We're driving in a car, and a guy is saying, like, it's been a year since the man came out of the woods and got hit by a car. And I was the first person on the scene. He's this reporter who sees it. And now he's going a year later to follow up on this thing. He's been catatonic the entire time.
He turns that channel in the car, though, in the radio.
They did say they found 3 bodies.
Yeah. After the news about the bodies, the radio talks about how the Beatles could be splitting up soon. I don't know if you heard that.
Yeah, like, reports are that George Harrison is tired of Ringo's shit.
Yes.
I know that's not the real reason the Beatles split up, everybody. So it was funny, the idea of George Harrison getting annoyed at Ringo.
So the doctor looks like Mitt Romney, didn't you think? He looked like somebody.
The doctor was
humongous.
Terribly dubbed. He was terribly dubbed. Like the voice did not fit. It was pretty funny. And again, throughout this, I want to stress like it's pretty interesting camera work. A lot of really close-ups. Like they do a walk and talk, which I don't think I've ever seen in a movie this old.
Oh.
Where like they're walking down the hallway and like they're kind of following with it and it's up close. Like there's a lot of interesting camera work, which
they're probably in a wheelchair.
You're probably
For
right.
real.
It probably was something like that. Somebody was in a wheelchair and they were wheeling along or something.
Because George, they were in the hospital.
They were in a hospital. And it turns out that David, since he's been catatonic, all he does all day is he has this little cross.
He's got
like a little Christian cross.
And the journalist is like, what's that for, David? To protect you from a curse? I'm like, what do you know, Mr. Journalist? And
why do you have those 2 pieces of wood crossing like that?
And he's a journalist from
is there a little man on there?
1945. He's got a suit and a hat.
I wrote down Robert Oppenheimer pulls up in a car. Like he is dressed so weirdly. Like, but this movie also comes at like kind of like, if you're a listener to this podcast, I complain that stuff made in the 60s really, for the most part, I can't get into.
I know.
But once it crosses over that 1970 threshold, I find it a lot more tolerable for the most part.
Yeah.
This movie is probably a 60s movie, but I still liked it. But there is definitely some like weird old timey shit in there. Like this,
the characters
reporter guy, like this guy, he fought in World War II. Like, he's dressed like it's 1939. Like,
and from this point, the story is told in flashback if we saw the same version, because he's like, so David, what happened? And he's recording his story.
Yeah. And there is at some point, David snaps out of his catatonia and attacks the reporter, and the reporter is like, I have his cross now.
Oh, that's right. He accidentally takes his cross, and I thought, is he a trickster? Was this movie that complex? But no, we don't know. Stole his
he could
cross.
Be.
He's a kleptomaniac.
Well, I got the impression it was more like because David jumped on him, was like choking the fuck out of him. I assume it just snapped off and landed in him somewhere.
No, you go to that reporter's house; it's full of crucifixes. He just
you think he's
from everybody.
He's a very specific type of klepto.
So here's where I think you didn't pay attention if we saw the same movie, because the flashback goes to David and Jim, and they're going to a party that Eddie is putting on at a cabin. You don't remember this? Because the way Jim is like, my friend Dave, he has no date. Do you know anybody who can go with him? You don't remember all this?
So then, Tim, I guess I don't, because then you're saying there's two cabins in this movie.
Yeah, they were going to go to Dr. Wasserman's on the way to the party.
Dr. Waterman also has a cabin. Yeah, Dr. Waterman.
It was confusing. But they were going to a party at Eddie's. Remember Eddie?
Not at all.
What? I hope you watched the Criterion I sent you.
Is Eddie even in this movie?
Yes. Jim calls him at the beginning. He says, Eddie, you got a babe that Dave can go to the party with? He's got no one. And Eddie's like, well, there is Susan. I just met her. I guess I could.
Oh, I just tuned out. I thought David and Susan were like a couple.
And when Jim hung up, he goes, okay, Susan's coming, and David's reading a Playboy. You don't remember this? Because he's like sitting there over there. Okay, I'm glad you got me a date. And he's just reading his Playboy. Like, that's what he does. No.
Who is on the cover? I don't at all.
I looked it up. Linda McDavidson. She was from England. I looked this up on the internet.
Oh, Tim, what year was she on the cover? This will tell us when they filmed it.
1969. March. And on the internet, I found her centerfold. Do you want to know the answers to her questions?
Yes.
Her favorite books, The Bible and The Shaping of England by Isaac Asimov. Also,
she's not a real person.
She said that, now that Jack Kirby is not drawing the Fantastic Four, she's mostly a Spider-Man fan. Favorite movies? Shaggy Dog and The Love Bug. She mostly likes Disney films.
Wait, Love Bug wasn't out yet.
It was too. That was in the late 60s.
That was no.
Yes, that's an old movie.
What's her name? Linda McDavidson?
She likes Disney flicks. Even though Walt just died, she hopes to meet him again when they defrost his head in 1984. Her favorite TV show is Mannix and the Happy Ghost of Mr. Dawson's Diner. Her pets, she has a pet rock. She thinks in a few years pet rocks will catch on. Her biggest turn on, cake farts. She's the one that started all that.
Okay. Wow.
Her biggest turn offs, demons from another dimension. That's weird.
Right.
Anyway,
wow.
All right. You don't even remember him reading Playboy.
I don't.
And I looked all that up.
Listeners, I do not know if there is a scene of this because honestly, I thought David and Susan were acting very much like they were an established couple.
Okay, maybe you saw a slightly different one.
Or maybe I just, sometimes when there's a movie throwing a lot of people at me, I kind of zone out in the early scenes where I'm trying to figure out who's who.
Do you remember Dave going, Susan, huh? What's her last name? And Jim's like, it's Turner. Remember this? And he's like, you're not.
I do have Susan Turner. So I was writing down characters' names, trying to get everybody.
Well,
Let's go over the cast really quick. Or the cast of characters.
David.
There is David, who is our hero, the catatonic guy.
Reads Playboy.
Who apparently reads Playboy with Robin Davidson on it, or Linda Davidson, whatever her name was.
Jim.
Then there is Professor Waterman, who is his professor. There's some sort of weird thing where he's got to meet him, I guess, on the way to this other cabin, if this is indeed true and not like a weird Tim joke.
Oh.
Susan Turner.
Yes.
Whose feet we saw in the beginning, the bloody feet, presumably. She is, I thought she was the girlfriend of Dave, but apparently she was just hooked up with him like moments before. Jim Hudson, who is the best friend of Dave. This is the guy who was apparently on WKRP in Cincinnati. And
Eddie.
He's an interesting character. He apparently was Eddie. And
No, sorry. There's also Eddie, who you don't seem to remember.
I don't remember the character of Eddie in the slightest.
Hope you saw Vicky. Vicky with the giant hair.
Vicky, because Vicky was actually a character in this movie who was on threat. Yes, Vicky was definitely Jim's girlfriend.
Because Dave says, "You're not going to hook me up with a loser, are you?" And Jim's like, "We'll just have to wait till tomorrow to see." What's her last name?
Any of this.
He's like,
all right,
Turner. And Dave's like, he's not related.
Did she write a diary?
Not related to Joseph William Turner, the watercolorist from the 18th century, is he? Because I don't like that watercolorist. Lived with his dad, slept with his housekeeper, was addicted to snuff. Don't like that watercolorist. You missed all this? He kind of had a Canadian accent. He'd go,
a Canadian?
A Canadian. It's like, I don't know. You're not going to hook me up with a loser, eh?
I'll tell you fucking what, Tim.
You watch.
I'm looking on the goddamn cast list right now.
Eddie.
There's no Eddie. There's no fucking Eddie.
There's Eddie.
I can't believe you are derailing this conversation to this degree.
There is an Eddie.
Where?
Eddie, listen. Eddie shows up with Susan. You didn't see, and they meet, and Dave is like creepy. He's like, "Well, hello," and he holds her hand, and she's like, she's just meeting for the first time, and Eddie, he's having the party, and he gets in the car and he says, "I got to run up to the cabin, get everything ready." And at one point, they're like, he's like, "Eat on the way," and they're like, "You're not going to supply food?" And he's like, "Hey, I guess, but eat on the way. It's a long drive." And he drives off. We don't see Eddie again. He's going to get the cabin ready for a big party, and all the kids are coming. I'm not lying. I'm not lying.
There's no Eddie. There's no Eddie listed in IMDb either. And in the version of the movie I saw, Tim, I don't know if this is a weird joke. Am I supposed to be ending this?
It is not.
Just not if I am.
It's not.
Because they're talking about having picnics and going to see the professor. There's no mention of going to a party. It's also the middle of the day.
You watched the other version, okay? Eddie doesn't show up again, but Eddie did leave saying, "I got to get the cabin ready for the party."
I'm ending this podcast.
You watched the wrong fucking version. It's okay. The most of it's the same, but Eddie's important to my revenge story. So Eddie is in it.
Let me mention the character that's important to mine, Flo. Do you remember Flo?
Sure.
She sits in the back seat of the car, but whenever there's a scene that's important to the plot, Flo ducks down so you can't ever see her. But Flo's there for all the important scenes. You just always off to the camera.
Does Flo say, "Kiss my grits"?
No, she says, "Kiss my processed corn material." She was the predecessor of. I know that's a thing. God damn it! I am so thrown by what you're talking about. Like, I don't know what the fuck's going on.
This is your producer, Miss Lee. It was at this point that George and Tim realized they both watched different versions of Equinox. George watched the version that involved a character called Flo, but featured no Eddie, and Tim watched the version with no Flo, but which involved the kids going to Eddie's big party, a party with no food. After staring at each other in sadness for 10 minutes, George and Tim decided to continue the show using enhanced computer graphics to make the program look more polished.
We broke and reconvened, and sure enough, there is a character named Eddie.
Producer Lee helped us out.
Producer Miss Lee came in and found the exact moment. There is a character named Eddie. They are indeed looking at a Playboy. This is weird because Eddie drives off in a car saying, "Setting up my cabin for a party."
Yeah.
He never comes back again. He's never mentioned again.
No, because they don't.
They go to a different cabin, and when that cabin turned out to be destroyed, they make no attempt to leave and go to the party. They're like, "Oh, I guess we'll have a picnic in the woods." It's never mentioned again.
It's a little different. Here's the plot of my movie. They're going to go to the party, and they're like, "Let's stop at Waterman's house cabin. He has a cabin in the woods too. We're going to stop there first." That's my story. And that cabin is destroyed by a monster, and they're like,
"Shh."
Oh, okay.
Spoilers. Now, okay. since this was a party happening, so David is a student of Waterman. Why are they going to his cabin?
He's been acting strange.
Really?
Yeah, that's like, he's been acting odd and something odd's going on. He's got this magical cursed book, you know?
They don't know about the book yet.
I know. They don't in this one either, but that's their reason.
Yeah.
So similar.
All right, so
let's just
now
move
we've got
ahead.
this Eddie shit out of the way. Let's move out of the way.
Let's just move ahead. They're driving. In my movie, they're driving, and they run over a small man in the road, and they take some pills, and they. Now George doesn't know what I'm lying about.
When you say a small man, was he like
proportionally small?
He was proportionate. He wasn't like.
A small
person. Was he a little person, or was he like okay? So he wasn't like Peter Dinklage. He was more like, was he a small person like the way like I'm not the tallest guy in the world? Is it like that,
that's what he was,
or were we talking like actually like a superimposed 6-inch tall person?
Yeah, 6-inch tall person. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, make up your story. All right.
So
back to the movie as it really happens. As they're driving, they're talking about the picnic, and there's a lot of like Jim, who is the best friend.
Yes.
The one that's dating Vicky, he's kind of like the jokey character. He delivers all his lines in a voice like this, and he's kind of amusing. And it's interesting to me. I want to actually make because David, who is our main character, he's like a real thick block of wood.
Yes.
Like we see in all these old 60s movies. I
think he's Canadian. He's like wood.
Maybe he is, but he's just like that typical, like what you see in a 1960s leading man, where he's just like, I guess he was some sort of idea of masculinity that people aspired to. And he's thick as fuck. He
doesn't date losers in my version.
Doesn't date losers, apparently. Yeah. He keeps making bad decisions, and he just talks in a way. He's a fucking square. I got
to tell you something you missed though.
Okay.
In your version, does Jim have a camera?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Cause in the car, he's mansplaining to the girl. He's like, you push the button here. The picture comes out here. Yeah, is he doing that to the girls in your version?
Yeah, and I thought it was going to be a little bit more of a Chekhov's camera, and it kind of comes up later, but not really.
Yeah. But before that, did you see the scene where they took a picture of everybody?
No.
Because Jim gives the camera to David.
Oh, he gives it to Flo, who's sitting in the middle.
I'm not making this up. He gives it to David.
And Flo says, I'll take that picture. Kiss my corn process.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he takes their picture.
Uh-huh.
And he does his stuff. He's like, Susan, move over there. Vicky, move this way. And he takes the picture. And it's one of those cameras where you pull the film out, and I guess you look at it in 2 minutes because he shows it to Jim, and Jim's like, you can't do anything right, can you, Dave? And I'm like,
I don't think there are such cameras.
What was that all about? You didn't show us. We didn't see the picture. I don't know what you did wrong.
No, there was a weird thing in this movie that I also felt was interesting for the time period. Surprisingly naturalistic dialogue at points.
Sometimes,
like Dave. I mean, Jim and Vicky are always kind of like bickering because they're like a couple that's been together for a while, but like in an amusing way, kind of.
And Vicky has humongous hair.
She does have a big hair helmet.
Because she has to wear a hairnet in the car. Did she do that in your version?
Oh, I don't know, Tim.
She's like, oh no, my hair. And they open the glove compartment and there's 50 hair
folks,
nets.
It's
okay.
These details that Tim is bringing up, I would say we are 8 minutes into a movie that's an hour and change long. And the first 5 minutes are just a guy running and getting hit by a car.
This was my favorite part of the movie, though, was her and her hair. And Jim, she's like, how's my hair? And Jim's like, it's terrible.
He does nag her a bit. So, all right, let's get this thing moving. So they get to the professor's cabin because Eddie's cabin is never mentioned again. And the professor's cabin in the middle of the fucking woods, you have to walk a little while to get there, they say. And they're worried about the girls because the girls aren't dressed for hiking. And this cabin is destroyed. And I guess it's a model. Well, we don't know yet.
Well, in my version, they see the cabin. Oh, yeah, they didn't know. But they show us, right? In my version, I see a tentacle monster. Oh, in my version, it was weird in my version. They showed it to the audience that the cabin is destroyed by a tentacle monster. Then the kids show up and they go, gee, the cabin got destroyed. What happened here?
Really?
Yes, that is my version.
I got to watch this again.
And they see a castle.
I feel like I need to mention this. That's a little bit later in mine. I did take a gummy for this. A perfectly legal gummy. So maybe I zoomed out. It says, I don't feel like I did.
Well, do you see the part where Jim says to Vicky, I'm thirsty. Did you bring the water? And Vicky's like,
I was trying to mention that for the longest time. And then you kept talking about hairnets.
Mention the thing with the water, George.
No, you did it already. I want to mention this. They see the cabins destroyed, and they're wondering what to do. And a park ranger pulls up on a horse, which Tim doesn't remember seeing.
It wasn't in my version. Interesting.
No, you're a liar.
It wasn't, George. It wasn't.
All right, stop the movie again. Anyway, this guy pulls up on a horse, and he is a park ranger, and his name is fucking Asmodeus, which I'm like, oh, you're the bad guy. And he's kind of like creepy and a little bit dickish. And he's telling them like, well, you're looking for your friend. His cabin's destroyed. Maybe you should get on out. They're like, well, we figure we'll have a picnic because we're certainly not going to Eddie's party. And while they're talking, Vicky just wanders off.
Ooh.
Like she just has like AD&D. Like AD&D?
Yeah.
ADD?
That's what you play.
And she finds a fucking castle.
Yeah,
and they go. They're like, "Oh, yeah." They come and find her. She's like, "Oh, hi guys, I wandered off because I was bored talking to the scary evil man on the horse. And look, a castle." And they're like, "It's a castle, all right."
She just wanted to have fun, George.
She just wanted to have fun, and she had like red hair, and she was doing this crazy dance. This old English guy came out of nowhere. It was really weird. So they're walking to this castle, and they're taking this whole route there because, again, no worry about Eddie's party. They're thinking maybe the professor who lived at the cabin they saw destroyed. They're like, maybe he went there.
Okay, George.
So let's go find him at the castle.
Let's make the best of this. In my version, they see the cabin, and they're like, should we go tell the police what happened to that cabin? And then they're like, well, but there's a magical castle. And they're like, what should we do? And they're like, let's go check out the castle. And so that's what they do. They hike to the castle.
Well, they tell the ranger about the castle. They talk with her right there. So as far as they're concerned, they report it to the authorities.
Okay.
They tell Ranger Asmodeus on his horse that you couldn't see.
In my version, they're like, Eddie's going to be sore. We're not at his party. Or he's like, Eddie's going to be sore, eh? We're not at his party. I'm going to be really sorry. That's what David says. Okay.
So this next part, I want to
I hope it's a cave, George. I hope it's a cave.
Yes. Okay, it is a cave. So this part is the most insane part of the whole movie because they're passing by this cave on way to this magical castle that they've never seen before that's in the woods. Yes. And like this evil cackling laughter comes issuing forth from it. And they run to the cave. Which I'm like, no. That's not what you do when you walk by a cave and you hear like maniacal laughter.
Yes.
You get creeped out. You stare at it for a second. You're like, huh. And then you get the fuck away from that cave.
And Vicky's like, did you pack the flashlight, Jim? And Jim's like, I thought you packed the flashlight. Vicky's like, well, I didn't put batteries in it. Did you?
Yeah. It's continuing the funny adventures. So instead of just being like, okay, we hear evil laughter coming from this cave. We don't have flashlights. Let's just go on to the castle because they all have attention deficit disorder. Instead, they stop and make fucking torches.
Yep.
And they go inside. While this is happening, while they're making torches, Vicky finds giant two-toed footprints. Like Nightcrawler from the X-Men is walking around or something.
You know a Crabtree made that. That Crabtree who doesn't know how to count toes.
The Crabtree shot his foot off in a boating accident.
Let's try 2 toes.
So they find these giant footprints right as they're about to go into this cave, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the guys says, "What a pair of gunboats!"
I don't remember that part. What's he talking about?
The shoes. The feet, because they're so big. Because they're such big.
Oh my God.
And then he says this line, which is weird. This is Jim says this. "You're a geologist, Dave. You ever unearth anything like this?" I'm like, oh.
Well, you know what? We know nothing about these characters. That's at least one thing I know about these characters. Nothing. We don't know if they like chocolate or vanilla. We don't know anything about them except Susan wears a crucifix.
Yeah, which we learn in a little bit.
And Vicky has big hair.
Like this is my basic premise of this. These characters all have attention deficit disorder. Like they go to this cabin. The cabin is destroyed. And instead of like reporting to the police like you said or something, they see a castle off in the distance. They start heading to the castle. Along the way to the castle, they hear spooky laughter issuing out from a cave and then stop and go into the cave. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with these people?
And in your version, I hope they encounter a crazy old man.
Well, first, Vicky finds a maggoty skeleton.
And she doesn't scream. I was like, oh my God, she doesn't scream.
And it's like a skeleton wearing clothes. It's full of maggots. It's gross. Yeah. And then there was also like in my version, I hope this is in your, because I was delighted by this. There must have been about like a 2 or 3 minute long sequence of them running through the cave where it was just dark.
Just walking. I think Vicky put her flame up to the wall, and it was like, for a good time call. And she's like, what's my phone number? What's going on? So was that in your part? Was that in your version, George?
No, good joke, dude. They didn't have a sequence where it was just them running through tunnels and it was just black. You just heard stuff
for just a moment, because then they see this old man. Is that what happened with you?
Suddenly there's an old man, and I was taken aback.
I loved his voice.
Yeah. Can you do an imitation? Tim, can you do the old man's voice?
Oh my God, I don't know. You're not here to steal my books, are you?
No.
You're not here.
He's not worried about stealing the book. He's like, you're here for the book? You got to take it.
I thought he
wants them to take the book.
Well, okay. I thought he said, you're not here for my books, are you? You stupid. And then he was like, here, take my books.
Yeah, he wants the book. So this old man, like
that's not his voice,
that threw me. No, that's the Tim voice. The thing that threw me, he was just kind of an old man wearing like plaid, and like it was tucked into his like khaki pants. The way this cave looked, you've of course seen, but listeners, if you've never seen Monty Python and the Holy Grail,
okay,
I fully expected this to be Tim the Enchanter.
Yeah.
Like John Cleese with a long beard and like curved goat horns.
What do you think his
fire.
voice was like? Help me out.
I think it was like this. He was like, book, you're here for the book. You got to take it. It was like this really kind of, and he spoke in a weird way. Like he had impeccable posture. Like
I see his posture.
He was literally kind of scary. But he was supposed to be a crazy guy living in the cave, but he was like this dude. He had like a shirt that was buttoned up fully. It was tucked into his pants, wearing a belt. I'm like, he doesn't look like a hermit. He looks like a guy that would be at the gas station in Boggy Creek.
Reading the newspaper.
Reading the Playboy with Linda Davidson on it.
Take my book. Give me some hard candy.
So
you won't take my precious. He
runs off deeper into the cave. The old man.
Yes.
And and Dave, the leader, is like, well, let's follow him. I'm like, no.
No.
Crazy old man runs into the cave. No, you get the fuck out. This guy was sitting there in complete darkness and just appeared. And like finally, Susan at one point's like, do you really think we should follow him after they're fine for a bit? And Dave's like, well, he can't hurt us. I'm like, yes, he can.
He said,
you don't know where he's going. He could be leading you into a pit full of spikes. He could have a shotgun around the corner. Could be bears.
He was saying, you can't have my precious.
My precious. Yeah, he could have a ring that turns him invisible.
No, he kept saying, you can't have my precious. And they did follow him, and they found an issue of Playboy in the centerfold. Was Precious.
Who was in this one?
Was Precious Waters. They're like, this is what he was talking about.
Is that a real person? George is looking up.
George, the man said, you can't have my precious.
I know. I get it. Is Precious Waters a real
person? You made me explain the joke. Now it's ruined.
Yeah, that joke is ruined because of that. So the old man has like he moves some rocks aside. So he picks up like a leather-bound book and with their lock on it, hands it to him, and he's like, "You gotta go." They leave. They leave, and they immediately start gaslighting Vicky. Vicky's like, "I tell you, I saw a skeleton," and they're like, "Yeah, what sort of skeleton was it? I bet you it was just an animal." She should have been like, "No, fucktard. It was like literally wearing clothes. It was a human skull." But like they just all ignore her. So yeah, and we never really find out what that's about.
No, we don't.
Okay.
Maybe you can explain this to me. This is kind of fun. I had a little bit of continuity error. They were walking through the woods for a while with nothing because they're like, Jim, did you bring the water? And Jim's like, no, Vicky's supposed to bring the water. Vicky's like, did you put butter on the ham sandwiches? And Jim's like, no, I thought you were going to put butter on the ham sandwiches. But they had nothing. And then after they go to the cave, they show a scene of like chicken bones being thrown on the ground. They're like, yum, yum. And I'm like, where did you guys get chicken?
Holy shit, Tim! What? This is a huge difference. There is a huge sequence in mine where they have a bucket of KFC.
Oh my God.
It's literally KFC. They even make jokes about the Colonel.
Really?
I was so excited. Like in my notes.
Okay.
I wrote real big KFC. Like literally. And then there's a joke.
Yeah. What's the joke?
Then there's a joke. Jim's like, Did you make the potato salad too, or did the Colonel do that? She's like, I made the potato salad. Goes, I'll just stick to the chicken then.
Oh my God. Poor Vicky. Is that Vicky again?
Yep. Yeah, because Jim's always like they're in a relationship, and Jim has learned to keep her in that relationship by fucking keeping her down. Everything she does, little cuts at her. Hey, Vicky, your hair looks real nice today. I could see it from outer space. She's like, oh, is it too big? No, your hair is fine. Everyone's hair has its own gravitational pull.
In your version, do they show the tiny knife that Jim has called Vicky's hair stabbing knife? Because that's in my version. It's a tiny knife.
Not even hair cutting.
It's hair stabbing.
So Dave has become obsessed with opening the book. They're all off eating the KFC, which was weirdly cut from Tim's version. And the girl's like, come on, chicken. And like Dave and Jim are over a little ways looking at the book. And Dave's like, come on, eat. He's like, no, I'm trying to get this book open. The old man neglected to give me the key. So Jim pulls out his knife, hands it to Dave. Dave is like stabbing it.
The hair stabbing knife?
It's the hair stabbing knife. Okay. He's like, hey,
thank you.
Watch out. You're messing up. You're going to break off the tip. He goes, this is the way you do it. Ooh. Jim sits down because Jim's not an idiot like Dave. He pops open the book. And Tim, I thought of you because you were very happy at this scene, I'm sure. The two men immediately recall in disgust because the book smells like farts. Like, oh, it smells like eggs and sulfur. I'm like, Tim is so happy right now.
Because Jim's like, wait. I thought that sulfur smell was coming from my pants.
I thought the book smelled bad on the outside. How do you not say that? So they're looking through the book.
And he says, I think this has to do with evil in my version. Something to do with evil.
Because it's written in looks like an Aramaic, a lot of it, but part of it's written in Latin. He's like, I could kind of make this part out. And he's reading it aloud.
A lot of coffee stains. A
lot of coffee stains, drawings of penises everywhere. Susan cuts him off. She goes, oh, I don't think you should read any more of that. I know what that is. He's like, what is it? It's the Lord's Prayer backward.
Really? So like, that is not my version.
Wait, really?
No. In my version, they get out a record player and start playing Led Zeppelin backwards. And Susan's like, oh.
In my version, they're in a cabin and they're playing a recording, and he's recording it from like this ancient text, and it goes to Sumerian demons. And all of a sudden, like this camera comes zooming through the woods and it possesses them. They become deadites.
In my version, Jim says Beetlejuice like 5 times or however many times he has to say it.
In my version, he says Candyman, Candyman, Candyman. But instead of Candyman coming, Freddy Krueger comes. And then Kevin Kablasto was there, and he said, I'm going to cover this movie. They get the book open. They realize it's probably evil when suddenly they get tackled by a wild-eyed and crazy Professor Waterman.
Okay. This was not my version.
No.
An old man attacked them and took the book, but they never knew who he was. He was just a stranger.
Really?
Yeah.
It's Professor Waterman.
Okay. I never met.
So this old man attacks him, who he is well-dressed. I wrote down he looks like an incarnation of Doctor Who. He's very tweedy. He looks like a professor would in the 60s. And he's running with the book. And Dave, who is the student of him, stands and goes, that was Professor Waterman. I don't know why he would do that. And he and Jim go running after him. And they're chasing him through like a shallow stream.
Okay, I saw this.
Dave fucking tackles this old man.
Murders him in my version.
Murders him. He goes down, his head hits a rock, and he's dead. Mm-hmm. And I laughed.
Because Jim's like, I don't let the fact you killed that old man bother you. Did he say that in your version?
Yeah, he's like, well, he doesn't call him an old man. He says the professor.
That's funny. He did say old man. And he said, just put some leeches on him. He'll get better.
Well, like they have this moment where like Dave's like, I fucking killed the guy who was my mentor. Mm-hmm. It's this whole fucking thing. And Jim like walks him back, and they start heading back to the girls. And Dave's like, I feel bad leaving his body there. He heads back. They're gone for like 2 minutes. They go back. Body's gone.
He's gone.
And what's funny, I don't know if this is in your version, they kind of hint it was dissolved by sulfuric acid.
Yeah, I didn't.
Like
didn't
in
say that
seconds.
To me. Yeah.
They
smell sulfur again.
They smell sulfuric acid or something, or sulfur, and they're like, huh. And then Asmodeus comes again on a horse.
See, he's not in my version.
They tell him about the cave.
Jeez.
But Dave keeps trying to cover stuff up. Dave covers up the fact they just killed his professor for obvious reasons. tells him about the cave. There was something else they covered up.
Well, basically, my version, after he disappears, they
tell him about the footprints.
They tell the girls, "You stay here. Now we're going to get to that castle." And I think this is where, in my movie, the first stop motion monster shows up. He wants the book. Basically, it doesn't matter, but that's basically what's happened. Does that happen in your movie? Stop motion monsters show up to get the book?
Yeah, but not yet. First,
well, I'm trying to skip stuff.
Well, this is really important. This is the part where he assaults Susan.
See, it's not my version. Uh-oh.
No, really?
No. Jim?
All right. So while this is happening, no,
David?
Jim and David are dealing with Asmodeus elsewhere. Kind of simultaneous, Asmodeus appears back at the camp. He's got this weird ring that he twists, which at the time I wrote down, I thought it was an elephant penis, like it was an elephant head and a penis. I realized later it was a frog. Oh. He twists the ring and he kind of becomes like monstrous himself. Like he gets bags under his eyes, and he seems to have mentally controlled Susan.
I need to watch this
and
version.
It is fucking hilarious. It's not hilarious because it's disturbing, but he fucking kisses the camera.
Ooh.
Like the actor playing Asmodeus comes up and you're looking at his face. He's going like, "Oh," and they keep calling the scene back. So if this wasn't in your version, this is insane. He like makes out with the camera. Like literally the guy puts his mouth and his tongue over the camera lens they're filming with. And it's really weird because they're laying on the floor and like he's just like molesting her. Like he puts his hand up her shirt and shit.
Oh, what?
Yeah, and there was a weird bit. This was also a bit where there was the horse, and the horse kind of like she first sees the horse and like it rears up and it scares her.
Mm-hmm.
And it's weird. And Susan seems to be under his mental control.
Okay. In my version,
like he looks kind of like a Deadite, like from Evil Dead.
Huh. Well, that's all out. That's not in my version. Not at all. The monster
this thing gets
shows
called
up
back multiple times. Okay.
And tries to get this book from them. It chases them. They throw rocks at it.
Now, this makes a lot of sense to me. So your version has got to be a lot shorter because later Asmodeus appears again in that same ring. He twists again and he calls the monster, which is like a giant 50-foot ape monster, right?
Yeah.
In my version, they get back to camp and that's when we see finally that it was a giant squid monster that destroyed the cabin.
Okay.
In a flashback, within a flashback.
Well, the monster tries to get the book and they stab it and it appears to die dramatically.
Yeah, this monster, it is like, they call it an ape monster. It's real big.
Yep. It is like the animator made a King Kong like as a kid and he altered it to use in this movie I read. So
was this sequence in there when they find the notes and they're reading them, the notes inside the book?
Yes, because that's when we get another flashback about what Waterman did, right?
Yeah, that's when in my version we see that the house is destroyed by the squid. And there's a great bit where they talk about like how there's portals to other worlds and stuff. And Jim, our lead, goes, "I guess this means we have to give some credence to Dr. Waterman's notes." Oh, he says that when they discover the portal. And Susan is like, or Vicky's like, "Huh?" And Susan goes, "He means we should believe him." I'm like, they had to translate for her. Oh, God. That's fucking rude.
Yeah, she didn't know how the camera worked, so.
So there is a portal they discover
when they do learn
to
all
another
this,
world.
Yeah, he learns that Professor discovered a portal, and these demons don't want him to have that knowledge. And Jim says, a very stilted line. He says, "I guess I should let everyone know I'm scared." Was that in yours? They're like, "What are you scared of?" And he's like, "I'm scared about the Rolling Stones breaking up. I'm scared."
You heard about the Beatles, right?
I'm scared that Vicky will read a dictionary and find out what stupid means.
So in my version, what happens?
Yeah.
Yep. The ape monster appears. Yeah. So they discover via use of a split screen another dimension or something, which is presumably why the castle appears and disappears, because the castle disappears. And like they put their arm through this thing and like it disappears. You can't see them anymore. They come back. Jim and Dave go into the other world. And while they're there, the girls are attacked by this ape monster who is chasing the old man from the cave.
Okay. He's not in my version.
Oh my God, Tim, you missed the best bit of stop motion.
Oh, that's the beginning of my movie. He kills him, right? He throws him around.
he ragdolls him.
Yes, that was
yeah. Really?
It was like at the beginning.
Interesting. So this is interesting that we watched two such different versions. Like, whereas yours kind of gave a lot of the stuff away right off the bat, and for me, they show it later. Like, and the girls in my version are witness to this. Like, they see this first, and they're being chased by the monster. The boys come back and they do the thing. They're throwing rocks at him and stuff.
Yeah,
Dave. It's trying to get the book.
Yeah.
And there's a great scene where like the book has fallen in like a little crevice and the monster picks up a tree and is like kind of dragging it out.
Yes.
And they should just let it take the thing. But like, I guess Dave needs to have the book because he's nuts.
He
runs out with a spear and stabs him like an insane person.
Dave's like, this book isn't painted by Turner, that 18th century watercolorist I hate. I got to get a few things in.
Okay. This movie, it's a list. It's a list.
No, this movie's called Equinox. So how could I resist this? I got some Equinox jokes for you.
Holy fuck, I'm leaving.
So George, knock knock.
Tim, this is our longest episode. How dare you do this to us? All right, go. Just get this shit out of the way. Do it. Who's there?
Equinox.
Equinox who?
Equinox once for yes, and Equinox twice for oh no, I've been possessed by a demon.
All right, can everybody hear this?
I got one more. Knock knock.
Who's there?
For.
For who?
It's pronounced for whom, George? Okay, one more. Knock knock.
Folks, you've been listening to Shetty Bimco. If you yeah, okay.
Knock knock.
Who's there, Tim? Who's there?
Europe.
Europe who?
Ah, how dare you call me a poo, George?
Oh my god.
I am not a poo. I told you, no more poop jokes.
Folks, I just want to remind you all, in his day job, my co-host Tim Hamilton, cartoonist for The New Yorker. You are really privy to some rare displays of wit here. This guy appears...
I'm bringing it home.
All right. You're bringing it home?
Yes. Let's bring it home.
All right. So Dave, I want to talk about this part.
Okay. I won't stop you. I won't derail you.
The old man has been killed. Mm-hmm. They've killed the monster.
Mm-hmm.
They're like Susan's like, let's get out of here. And Dave is like, no, first we have to take care of the old man's body. Then we'll go tell the ranger. So basically he's like, first we have to go tamper with the crime scene and then we can leave.
In my version.
Well, in my version, this is a scene that you said doesn't happen.
Okay.
This is when Susan goes nuts. She becomes a zombie.
See, that didn't happen.
I guess because of her previous attack by Asmodeus. And she starts strangling Vicky.
Okay.
And she's like, got her. And like, it's great. Vicky picks up like a big rock and like bashes her on the side of the head. Yep.
How is she in the rest of the movie with no blood? Like, they really edited this.
Because I'll tell you why. Because there was no blood. Because this rock, it looked pretty good, but when she hits it, you could see that it's styrofoam.
It was a pet rock.
And she kind of does this thing like you would do if you're like rolling your neck, and she comes back and she's got a weird smile on her face, and she keeps coming.
Let me ask you: did she already give her crucifix? She revealed to Dave, because in my version, she's like, "This protects you from evil. Here, Dave," and Dave's like, "Okay." He's totally ungrateful.
In this version, the crucifix. This is the scene where it gets. Oh no. The crucifix gets revealed in the scene where Asmodeus is molesting her.
Because it should protect her, right?
Yeah, and it's when he pulls up her shirt, it has fallen off and come down her shirt, and it's on her belly, and he goes, ooh, and he runs off. That's how that ends.
Oh.
So at this point, they have actually made their own symbols, because it's not just crucifixes and stars of David. There's other symbols in the book.
Oh, totally not.
There's this thing with two different circles. They find this whole stuff. They're making them out of reeds. Vicky doesn't have the patience to make hers correctly. And so she's feeling left out. Yeah, total Vicky.
Didn't anybody mansplain to her how
and
to
actually,
create?
that's probably why Vicky gets attacked by Susan, I guess. I don't know. It's a jumble now, and unfortunately, I didn't take good notes for this last bit.
Was there a real man playing a monster in your version who played a giant man? A giant green man who was not stop motion. He was fun.
Wait, I want to read my description of him because it was fun. He was a giant, scaly green caveman wearing socks.
Yes.
He was wearing like a Fred Flintstone outfit, painted head to toe green, but he had like lizard scales on his face.
That was fun.
And he was very big, and he was wearing green socks. I'm like, dude, my man, you got to take the socks off.
And in my version, if we want to just get to it, somehow Jim gets sucked into the other dimension with the book. Dave goes into the other dimension to get the book from him. Is that what happens in your version?
So what happens is the monster, the green caveman carries Dave into the book. Carries Dave into the thing.
Dimension.
And he appears halfway at the split screen.
Yep,
and he's
they
like,
do that.
take the book, take the book. And they go in there. He gets pulled through. Dave goes after him. And then I guess it's not really Jim.
Yeah, they come out and Jim's got like dark makeup under his eyes and they're walking.
Yeah.
Like, hey, Jim, what's up? You're not yourself. Hey, how about that Vicky? She's pretty stupid, huh? And Jim's like, no, she's very smart. And Dave's like, whoa, who are you? That's what happens. And he reaches for his crucifix. And he's like, no, not a crucifix. And he turns into
Did you catch?
What?
Did you catch that when they're in the other world, Jim is laying there like wounded, or we think it's Jim.
Yeah, I saw that.
And Dave goes to help him, and he reaches up and grabs his shirt and crushes his symbol he made through his shirt.
Oh, that wasn't in my version.
Because they didn't even have the symbols being made in there. Yeah, he like reaches and grabs the shirt and crunches it like it's an accident. But then,
Dave is just a dick, is what you're saying.
No, Jim did this because Jim was possessed.
Oh.
So he was able to fight Dave,
Gotcha.
I guess, because then he becomes a red monster.
He becomes a red stop motion monster, and he's pretty.
How did
pretty
Vicky
cool.
die? How did Vicky die?
In my version, the red monster knocks out Dave and flies after the girls who have the book, and the red monster comes down and claws up Susan. Vicky, right? Vicky.
Claws up Vicky. I remember that. Yeah. Yeah, it's like a red gargoyle. Like it's like a red demon with wings.
It was good.
It's actually in my version, it's Asmodeus. Did you get that?
No. It's just a demon.
Because after it claws, you see it come down as a stop motion thing. After it claws Vicky, her body's laying there with like slash marks on her face, and then it cuts and it's Asmodeus standing there, and he's there with his fingers.
In my version, Jim turns into the red demon thing.
Yeah, I feel like that also kind of happened, maybe. So I don't know.
We're almost at the end.
I have to watch this again.
And I'm going to derail you one more time.
All right, a good list.
I do have a list.
I know. It's you, Tim.
The year before this, Woodstock and Altamont took place out in California. God, Altamont was a concert that was going to be like another Woodstock. It had the Rolling Stones, Grateful Dead, Flying Burrito Brothers, Jefferson Airplane, and Rolling Stones hired the Hells Angels for security, if you don't know this story.
I actually do know this. I didn't know that the Flying Burrito Brothers were a band and that they were there, though.
So
I also didn't know the Grateful Dead was there.
These three kids, Dave, Jim, Vicky, they didn't know Susan yet. They didn't go to Altamont. And you know what? These characters are so lame. I know nothing about them. But I can tell you why they didn't make it to Altamont. Okay? There's a couple of reasons. So first of all,
they saw a cave?
Yeah.
And they're like, let's go check out
this was last year. They did see a cave, and they're like,
They're always, anytime they see they're like, is that a cave? Like, it could just be a dark spot on the side of the mountain. Let's go check it out.
They did. They checked it out. But Vicky was like, I'm glad I didn't go. I was worried the Hells Angels might stab my hairdo. So they also didn't go.
Wait,
Vicky,
why are you doing this revenge prequel before we're even...
No.
Why is this happening?
No. Vicky refused to go because... Also, she had a grudge against the Flying Burrito Brothers ever since they stabbed her hair at one of their San Diego shows. Not a revenge story. And Eddie, who you don't know about, was going to take them. And Eddie said he had a big tent they could all stay in at the Altamont campground, but he wouldn't be supplying any food. And then he whispered to Jim, there'll also be a knife to stab Vicky's hair with. Oh, how does yours end? You want me to tell you how mine ends, or you want to tell me first?
Mine comes around to the full loop. Jim, I guess, does turn into the demon, but is also Asmodeus. Mm-hmm. I assume my actual take is that Jim is in the other dimension. That it was Asmodeus the whole time pretending to be Jim.
Okay.
Because he says, "You're not Jim, are you?" I don't think he says he's possessed Jim. I think he's changed shape into Jim.
Okay.
Vicky gets killed by Asmodeus the demon, flying, and then is there an explosion?
We'll see. I'll tell you how mine ended.
Yeah.
Dave got his cross, and Susan, who's still alive, they're running, and he's got the cross, and it's chasing off the flying demon. And as they run, they show he drops the cross, he loses it, and then they just happen to run into a cemetery, And there's, of course, this tombstone with a cross.
Oh, my God.
And the demon runs into it and blows up.
And by runs into the demon, very slowly flies into it and explodes. Why does Susan die?
Oh, then the cemetery explodes. That's about it. That's in my version.
Yeah, it was weird, right?
Yeah. Yeah, very weird.
And then we bring it back to the scene that opened the version of the movie.
Yeah, a good ending.
I think we both,
if it ends like yours,
where he's running down the road and he gets hit.
Well, he's in the mental hospital at the end of mine.
Well, yeah, I'm getting there. Okay. And then we cut back to the reporter and he's like, well, I didn't get anything new, just the same crazy bullshit he's been saying.
But did you hear what he said? He said, call me if he kills himself or something interesting.
Well, there was a bit where like a being comes to right before or after the cemetery thing, before it blows up, like a being made of black smoke appears.
Oh yeah, I saw him.
And it tells or her. It tells Susan, who's still alive at this point, and Jim, you think you've escaped, but I will kill you in a year and a day. Because they cut back, the reporter
Today's the day, isn't it?
It's a year and a day, and blah, blah, blah. And he's walking out, like this guy who looks like Oppenheimer.
Call me if he kills
himself. The hat and
stuff.
And he's walking out in the parking lot, and walking past him in this kind of weird, stilted way with a weird smile on her face is Susan.
Yep, it's Susan.
Dead Susan. It's going in, presumably, to kill Dave.
Yep, that was a good ending.
And that was the end. Whoa, Tim.
What a fiasco that you watched the wrong version. We better get to revenge, huh?
Okay, whew.
Wherever you are, wherever you're hiding, I'll find you. I'll get you.
Revenge.
Who's most likely to cry while watching pornography, I think?
I got my answer.
That's definitely Dave. We know though Dave, right?
It's Dave, yeah.
You're not going to show me a loser pornography movie, are you, eh?
Well, Dave cries because Dave really believes in the American dream. Like, there's that interesting transition of our protagonist. He's the old block of wood. He sees these new guys like Jim coming up. They're funny. They treat the women as equals, even though they kind of neg them all the time. He's like, I don't understand this strange new world. He only finds solace in Playboy.
Dave.
But for him, it has to be, Dave, it has to be all or nothing. So when he reads those questions, Linda Davidson, if there's even one thing he doesn't agree with, he knows it'll never work out, and he just cries.
Yep. Especially Precious Waters. He likes that issue with
when he read them with Precious Waters, he was all like, let's see, her favorite movie is Gone with the Wind. That's great. That's my favorite movie. Really? And her favorite food is edible stuff. I love edible things. Her favorite car is a Pontiac. I love Pontiacs. He's getting so excited.
What's her favorite hobby?
Her turnoffs, guy's named Dave. And he was like, oh. Then he's like, he drooped his head down. Like, if you guys need me,
I thought she might have been a fan of.
in the bathroom making monkey noises, but crying too, okay?
I thought maybe she was a fan of Turner, that famous watercolorist from the 18th century. And he's like, damn it, I hate that guy. We crushed it. We crushed it this week.
Man, we're so good. We're so good.
Dave would cry. You want to do your revenge first? Because you know what? I got to tell you, you didn't choose the guy I chose. For once, I know.
Because, yours is clearly Eddie. You go first, because I'm going to go with Eddie. Let's hear Eddie's first.
Okay, people. In my version, Eddie leaves at the beginning of the movie, and he's like, I'm going to get my cabin ready. And I'm probably not going to have food, so you better eat on the way. And there's no bathroom, so use the bathrooms on the way.
Dig a ditch in the backyard.
I swear there was an Eddie, and they're like, that's where they're going in the story. But they're going to stop and see Dr. Waterman first. That's all.
Uh-huh.
All right. So my movie, Revenge sequel, it's about Eddie. Mm-hmm. It's about Eddie. He's having a party. He's up at his cabin. Uh-huh. A lot of the people have come because he said there's going to be about 50 people in my version. And here's what you have to know. Vicky's hair was so important because Eddie had all the drugs that he planned to have at this party hidden in her big hairdo. Because she was bringing the drugs to the party. Eddie'd been caught with drugs before, and he couldn't chance another offense.
Eddie looked like he was trouble in that one still photo of him I saw.
Yes. So that's why she was so worried about her hair getting blown around. So Eddie, as we guessed, he had no food at his party. He planned to make the guests happy with all these free drugs. But the guests had neither food or drugs, and they're very unhappy. Eddie's party was going disastrously, and Eddie was having a meltdown. He started thinking about getting revenge on Vicky for doing this to him. Did she run off and sell his drugs elsewhere, he wondered?
Did she get clawed by a winged demon flying through the air? Who knows?
He doesn't know.
No, I'm going to say he could be guessing all kinds of stuff. So I'm saying.
He could think of that. Was she possessed? And he dreams about like stabbing Vicky's hair with his hair stabbing knife. So, if she did show up, Eddie wanted revenge on her. But rather than stabbing her hair, he planned to drop a bucket of pig's blood on Vicky when she got there. Carrie style.
That'll teach her.
Carrie style.
Predating Carrie, too.
Yeah.
This
is another movie that was ahead of its time. Another part of this movie ahead of its time. So the other partygoers, they resented having to sneak over to nearby Spawn Ranch and steal a skinny pig from their farm, but they went along with it because Eddie promised there'd be some drugs soon.
Why a skinny pig?
I like to throw into the history. There were skinny pigs on Spawn Farm. You think they fed those pigs? The Spawn Ranch, I mean.
I didn't even know there were pigs there.
But when they got back to the party, Bob Chickamore, the football star from school, he decided they would roast the pig as they were all starving. And he was like, "Screw this revenge, you nerd. I want bacon." Because Eddie was also known as a nerd who liked to read Spider-Man and stuff. So he made Eddie kill the pig by slitting his throat, because that's how you do it. And Bob was kind of a dick, and he liked to pick on nerds like Eddie. And Eddie was not prepared to hear a pig squeal like that. And after he killed it, he got a beer and went off and drank by himself, wiping the blood off his pants. And he became more angry about Vicky and Dave and Susan and what they had done with his drugs. And after he thought about it a minute, he got some more inspiration because he drank a bottle of beer with no food.
Nothing more inspiring than being drunk on an empty stomach.
Nope. Yep. He gathered around a few people, including Bob Chickamore, because he wanted to come and he was very pushy. And they got in a car and he said, "We're going to go find Dave and Vicky and Susan and find out what they did with those damn drugs of mine." And they were driving down the road, and Eddie turns on the radio, and this is 1970, remember? And he hears the terrible news on the radio.
The Beatles split it.
The Beatles broke up. And Eddie was a big Beatles nerd. He started crying.
Oh no, while driving.
Yes.
While driving drunk.
Bob Chickamore.
With pig blood on him.
Is in the back seat like, "Who cares about those Brits, man? Haven't you heard about this new band, Led Zeppelin?"
They're also British?
Yeah. Bob Chickamore doesn't know that.
Okay.
So Eddie lets go of the wheel and starts punching Bob Chickamore. What? What do you expect him to do?
I don't know. Not start punching his friend.
They go off a cliff. Yes, and they all die. So this is the first revenge movie where we go up to heaven, by the way. This is a big moment.
How is this revenge? He doesn't even get...
Well,
okay. All right, go on. Yeah.
They go up to heaven. And Eddie's happy to see that there was a Beatles section of heaven and a Led Zeppelin section. Thus,
Wow, that's weird.
Eddie never had to see Bob Chickamore again. Eddie just stuck to the Beatles section. But of course, Vicky died that day too, and she ended up meeting Eddie, and she explained why she wasn't at the party. And Eddie looked at her and said, "You mean you still have the drugs in your hair?" And Vicky said, "Yeah, I guess so." And they smiled at each other, and as it ends, we end with a camera shot of behind Eddie's back, and he's slowly putting down his hair stabbing knife. And they kiss. The end. And this movie is called Attempted Revenge of the Nerd. Because he never did get revenge.
No. Don't need to get revenge on the woman who got clawed to death by Asmodeus.
There you go.
Wow.
Trying to make these shorter.
Yeah, I know, that was still pretty long. What a weird stew of strange things just to kind of surface in there. Hair stabbing, the Beatles.
Eddie.
Carrie. Eddie.
Yeah. I'm so sorry you didn't get to meet Eddie in your version.
Well, hold my beer.
Okay.
It's time for... I'm doing start the music, hold the beer, hit the lights. Tim said he was going to do a short revenge. This has been a very long episode. Here's your short revenge.
Okay.
So as you know, clearly Tim and I watched two different edits of this movie. I didn't know there was such a thing. It's entirely possible we watched the same movie and just gravitated to different things and we just picked up on different stuff. Like, I can't believe they didn't identify the professor as the professor in yours. And I was going to do a whole story about the professor and how he was a previously unknown incarnation of the Doctor. But instead, I was inspired by your tales of Eddie.
Mm-hmm.
An entire character capable of carrying his entire narrative, a whole story that I wasn't even in my version. Or if he was, I didn't pay the guy any mind. And it reminded me of the character I had in mind that wasn't in yours, Flo.
Flo, yes.
Flo, who was in all the major scenes, just always a little bit off camera.
Totally believe she was there.
She was definitely there. You know what, Tim? Maybe you didn't see her because I didn't mention this. Completely nude the entire time. So they had to be really careful when they showed her because it would just, every time she's just like, look, I'm doing cartwheels. Like, well, there's an R rating.
Not only do I have horse blindness, I have nude blindness. So nude women, I can't see them.
At any given time, like while talking to Tim, there's just naked women walking through the background, stealing his stuff. Yes. They're messing with his hair. He's like, damn bugs. It's weird.
It is.
So Flo, she's like, why can't people notice me? I'm naked. I'm on horseback. I'm doing cartwheels. She keeps trying to get these other people to notice, but they're so wrapped up in their own stuff. Dave is like, no, that old man got killed. Let's go tamper with the crime scene. They're like, let's go to that castle. No, let's go to that cave. Let's do all stuff. Finally, she's like, guys, look at me. I'm completely naked and riding a horse. And know what happens?
What?
She goes into another world.
Ooh.
And that world, it looks like it's like kind of like medieval England or something. There's all these dirty people, like they're all like digging in the dirt and stuff. And she's riding through town, and she kind of arranges her hair to cover her naked bits.
And it's like a Beatles song.
Is that a Beatles song? They sing a song about Lady Godiva?
Oh, sorry, Lady
Godiva.
Lady Madonna.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, she becomes Lady Godiva. Okay. She calls that because she was eating a big load of chocolate the whole time too.
Oh, she got it at the airport.
And yeah, exactly. Because she flew in. She flew all the way there from, let's say, Kansas.
Okay.
Just to be part of this. And she bought she also had a lot of vodka. So she lives out some time in England amassing power as Lady Godiva. And she finds this book in a shop there that looks very much like the books that they're all obsessed with. She's like, I'm going to show them. And she eats the most vile concoction of things she could find in medieval England, which is like,
that's bad.
You think Taco Bell's bad, Tim? Imagine what English people were eating before they discovered curries.
Leeches.
They're like boiling socks and eels and leeches and stuff. She eats all that she can, right?
Yes.
Makes a real fucking and she's just holding all this in. And she takes this book, which she knows will one day be the book that they've discovered. She takes it, she farts in it.
What's going on?
And quickly locks it up. So if you recall,
I recall,
she dies naturally, old age, back in time, when they finally open up the lock and they're like, it smells like terrible sulfur. And that smell, that cloud of funk that launches into Jim and Dave's face when they finally wrest open this book that they're so obsessed with, it's the funk of 40,000 years from Flo's horrible gas. I just want to say I had no idea where I was going with any of that. So I think the fact that wrapped up at the end was pretty impressive.
Pretty good. Don't give away your secret.
Yeah. Yep.
That was awesome.
Yeah, I'm great. This was our best episode ever.
What an episode.
I'm glad that here's the thing. I am very glad we watched this movie. I really liked this movie. Yeah. I think we should each watch the other version and see, was it really a different version or were we just in an altered state enough that we kind of just
We'll talk about this next week and I'll talk about Flo.
Now, do we have an email, Tim?
My God. We do not. Let me refresh. There's no emails except, there's no emails. No emails.
Sounds like there's emails that Tim doesn't want to read because we went long.
So what are we going to watch next week? Since we've...
Oh, fuck, yeah.
We've gone on so long.
Tim, for week 2 of our October, Shocktober, Scaretober, Maretober, we're going to watch a movie I've always wanted to see. It was something I always saw in the video store when I was a little kid and never really got up the gumption to rent it. And I'm like, this is the chance. It is a little film, a bit of a classic, called Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Oh.
I was very inspired watching this movie. There's no way to watch Equinox and not be put in the mind of Evil Dead. And part of me wanted to do Evil Dead. I'm like, we can't.
Nope.
We can't. There's already a sequel to Evil Dead 2. There's multiple sequels. But I'm like, Killer Clowns from Outer Space, we can see where this goes.
George.
Yeah.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
2.
To who?
It's to whom, George? Come on, I told you that earlier.
You already did that joke.
I told you this earlier.
You fucking hack. You hack. Outrageous.
We better say goodbye. Goodbye, everybody.
All right, bye, everybody.
This has been a Pity Party Line production.
Party line, it's a party line.
And we finally saw The Flash. You didn't see that yet.
No, I don't know that I ever will.
It's so...
Last night, I thought of like watching The Flash. I'm like, do I want to do... I'm like, no. No, I don't want to watch this.
Here's the funniest bit. The beginning involves babies falling out of a building, out of a maternity ward. And the Flash is...
I have seen that part on
the babies are so obviously CG. That's why I'm laughing at it. Is that why you're laughing?
And also the part like I love the innocence of the filmmakers. Like, yeah, they are terrible looking weird CGI puppet babies. And to save them from an explosion, he puts them in a microwave.
It's not plugged in, George. Come on.
I know, but like that's what I'm saying, the innocence. It's like you had to have known that the second that gets out in the world, someone's going to film that, and that's going to be out of context. Like scenes of the Flash putting babies in microwaves. Are you kidding me?
Well, it wasn't plugged in. The worst that happened to that baby was he just like licked all that hard food that explodes on your microwave that nobody wipes off.
All the dried calcified cheese that sticks there.
Equinox.